How's it going, everybody? This is Rice Bonds, Montana DeYoung, back here with you again. And I'm back here with you about Barry Bonds for the first time in a couple of videos. You may have heard from my last appearance on the Essential Credentials podcast that the fire for Bonds is burning a little bit brighter and hotter again than it used to. I'm feeling the itch. So I rolled out my playmat that I had custom made from one of my better cards. I thought it would turn out better than this. It doesn't look very good. So I'm kind of disappointed with it. Um, so I have to have somebody who knows what they're doing, Matt, talking to you, come in and actually design one of these and use a reputable company to create a playmat that I think is a little bit high quality. But anyways, I wanted to tell you a quick story about what's been going on in my bonds life. I just haven't been buying very much, haven't even really been paying attention to the market, what's been coming up. And unfortunately, there was a Donruss Elite Master Craftsman Barry Bonds that came up, actually two in a row. And one I missed, and one I caught. It was a PSA 9. The parallel of this card here, the Craftsman is at a 3500 and it's from 1998 Donruss Elite. And I've been looking for the parallel, the hollow foil parallel of this card for about 3 or 4 years, which is a long time for me since I've only collected bonds for about 5. The card obviously is much more beautiful in this form. I mentioned on the Essential Credentials podcast that I actually bought Matt's copy of A-Rod as a stand-in for that card, and so I went in hard for this card for the bonds out of 100 on eBay, and ended up losing it for a price that I thought would, for a snipe that I thought would be more than enough, and it turns out that it wasn't, and I lost the card, and I was kind of frustrated about that. But as I discussed on that episode, the fact that I was upset about something having to do with bonds means that I was feeling something having to do with bonds, and that is an enormous improvement over how I was feeling the past 3, 4, 5 months leading in. So the fire is burning again, like I said. It would have been glorious to land this card. It's just such a beautiful card. Underrated. Maybe not as underrated now as it used to be, but hopefully I'll do better next time the card comes up. And, this card is foil board, so it's pretty condition sensitive. It's full bleed. So PS9 is not that easy to come by, I don't think. There's a lot of condition issues with this card. A lot of chipping, a lot of corner issues, a lot of micro scratches on the surface. So we'll see. But anyways, I was distraught. Not distraught, I was pissed that I did not win that card. And sometimes getting upset gets the juices flowing, and in this case it did. So for me, I went out and got another card for maybe a little bit more than I would have been willing to spend on the bonds, just because when you snipe something, you're already mentally and psychologically prepared to spend that type of money. So in your mind, that money's like is as good as gone. I don't know how your guys' psychology works, but for me, once I've decided to outlay a certain amount, that money is as if it doesn't exist anymore because I've mentally prepared to turn that into a baseball card. So oftentimes when I miss a card that I really wanted, I just use that money to buy something else, and that's what I did in this case. So let's open it up. It is an exciting card for me, just because even though I have never really had a shot other than about 4 years ago when I first started collecting bonds. I remember talking to Ben Franklin, the bonds collector, about whether I should buy this card from Burbank for about $500. And Ben told me at the time that he certainly personally would not, but obviously that I should do whatever I think is best. And he thought that it was overpriced at the time, and it probably was. But for a card like this, that's not numbered very high, you pretty much have to pay whatever somebody's asking, or just not have the card, right? Those are your two options. So I went out and went online and found a card that was outside my price range, and I tried to work with the seller to come to a price that I could actually live with. And after negotiating for a little bit, I got the seller to reply back to me and say he would give it to me for a certain price. And just the way he spoke was so frank. He I think he said something to the effect of, "I have an offer in hand for this amount. If you're willing to pay $100 more than that right now, I will let it go." And that frankness, plus the fact that the eBay account had something to do with Derek Jeter, made me think that maybe this person on eBay who had this card was my friend Casey, or somebody my friend Casey knew in the Jeter community. So I reached out to him and asked him, "Hey, do you know this person? Do you know this account on eBay?" And he said, yeah, that's me." I was like, "Whoa, that's crazy." I had no idea. I didn't have no idea, but I had an inkling. But it's crazy that just a gut feeling would cause me to go ahead and sort of reach out back door, and we came to an agreement not far from where the negotiation was on eBay, because as he is always prone to do, he speaks with frankness and honesty, and he had an offer on the table that I had to do better than to fairly get this card from him. And the card that I got from him is none other than the 1999 UD Black Diamond Mystery Numbers Emerald. This is a PSA 8. Let's see if I can get some better light on this. So it's not shiny per se. It's not shiny in the sense that we like it, which is a rainbow foil shine. I would have loved to have some rainbow foil on this, but Black Diamond, this etching is a very, very common aesthetic to Black Diamond, so it's not surprising that this card doesn't have any hollow foil in it. But even a little bit of hollow foil in the Black Diamond or Upper Deck would have really punched up this card, because I am, like many others, such a sucker for these cards. So I don't remember how many players are in this set. Something like 30 players are in the set. And depending on where the player is numbered, that's how many copies of the Emerald mystery numbers exists. So Bonds is number 25 in the set. He often is. It's just another sign of how much respect he got, at least from the manufacturers of baseball cards, that he often occupied the number 25. He is the embodiment of that number, and he is often found there. But 25 out of the 30 players, that means that this is one of the most sort of common and easiest to find players. Like a lot of the best players, number one is Babe Ruth, and so there's only one of those. And then a lot of the best players that everybody wants to collect, like Jeter and Griffey, they're all really, really low numbered. So I think there's only like 2 or 3 Griffeys or something like that, something insane. So for a lot of old school hardcore collectors of the best players, this card is on a short list of like ghosts, cards that you just cannot find, because there are so much fewer than 10. In some cases, so much fewer than 5 of those players around. But in this case, 25 is still pretty rare. It's darned rare. This is the second copy that I've seen since I had that discussion 4 years ago about the card that Burbank was offering. And so this is the next time I saw the card, and I managed to hammer out a deal for it. I paid a fair price because that's what you got to do to get a card. And I've never really seen one of these in person, so I'm kind of taking it in now. I like it. I mean, it's a great picture and a great pose. And I have had the parallel to this, just the regular mystery numbers, for a while now. These are numbered out of whatever the Emerald is times 100. So, like, there's, I guess, 100 copies of the Babe Ruth, because his mystery number is 1, and it's 100 more copies of this. So in the case of 25 times 100, if my math is correct, is 2,500, and that's why that this card is out of 2,500. I think Frank Thomas is the closest, major 90s player who has a numbering this big. I think Frank Thomas is 27 out of 30. And so his mystery numbers Emerald is out of 27 and his regular mystery numbers is out of 2700. So, yeah. I mean, this is a major card. Like the last thing I'll say about this card is that I did a ranking that I will like to pull up, and this card has been on my radar, but it's not on my list of most desired cards. It's just one of those cards that in the back of my mind, I wish I had bought back in the day because it was a lot cheaper back then. But like I said, I could have gotten it for 500. I don't know what that would have cost out the door with shipping and taxes and everything and fees. But in this case, I was able to pay. Well, I did the calculation of what inflation means for $500 from 4 years ago. It's worth more than that now. Like with inflation, that's the equivalent of five something, maybe close to six. And with the savings on fees, because I was able to buy direct and all this other stuff, I didn't make out too badly. I ended up paying something like $300 more in 2023 money to land this card. So it could have been a bigger disaster. A card like this, it built its mysticism and its greatness because a lot of the best players have such low numbered cards that getting that card is just a huge accomplishment for the collection. And for me, I had a list that I posted a little bit tongue in cheek on Facebook in the 90s baseball insert group about what the highest tiered 90s cards were. And I broke the very, very elite cards into a lot of tiers. So tier one only had two cards. Tier two had a few more. Tier three rounded out like the top 10 cards that you could get. And this card made it in my list of top 30. I remember after buying this card, I went back to check that list to see if I always regarded this card that highly, or I always felt that our industry and our community regarded this particular card that highly, and it was a top 30 card uh, in the set. It was, I think, tier 5, and then I think after the top 30 cards or some odd cards, there's a tier 6, and like everything else is pretty much tier 6. There's a lot of awesome cards there, but this is I would say that this is probably a top 30 card in our hobby, which is kind of crazy because there's only 30 players in the set. It's not like it's an insert. It's not a base card. It's a parallel of an insert, and because it's so rarefied for a lot of the key players, it just sort of built the mystique around this card. And I haven't lusted after this card, but I did want it, and I felt it was a missed opportunity not to get it. And I did feel that the amount of respect this card gets in our community is places it comfortably in the top 30 cards you can get from the 90s of a baseball player, assuming your player's in it. So, it was a consolation prize. It wasn't the Master Craftsman. It's not as beautiful. Not even close. Not even close. But it is an important card, a very satisfying card to have. Still fun to look at with the etching or whatever that is in the back. A good pose and sort of nice to have, I guess, the 2-card rainbow. So I guess these cards are based on some specific importance of certain numbers. In this case, they added Barry and Bobby Bonds' home runs and stolen bases together, just to do just to sort of note the most formidable father-son duo in terms of those two stats. But it is satisfying to have this. I mean, it's another feather in your cap as a 90s collector. I feel like if you collect a player in the set, you should eventually try to land this card. Easier said than done for a player like Jeter or Griffey, because the print run is so darned low. But this is still a very satisfying card to have. It's very satisfying to have a card out of 25. There are very few Bonds cards that I own that are out of 25 or less, and many of them are the very best cards I own. including the Red Crusade, including the 2000 Stadium Club first day issue Chrome Refractor, including the Super Rave from 1998. So cards out of 25 for Barry Bonds, particularly special because it's his number on his jersey, and particularly special because 25 is a kind of a major marker for a card that is ultra rare and hard to find. So yay, like I'm gonna slide this into the box and know that I have one of the more legendary 90s baseball cards of a player. And that tells you also the importance of community and knowing people, because if I didn't know this seller, I don't know if it could have been as smoothly sort of put away as it was. I've worked with Casey before. Casey, thank you very much. This is a beautiful card. I'm really glad I happened to catch you. You've helped me out with my collection in the past, and that does not change with the addition of this really key card, which I'm thrilled to have. So, first Bonds card in a while is a major one. That's why the story was a little bit longer. That's why I had a little bit more to say about it. But if anybody has a Master Craftsman, Barry Bonds, that they don't need, they want to sell, I think I'd be willing to pay a fair price for it. Just let me know. Okay, guys, till next time.